Okay, so you would like me to introduce myself. I'm Philip Cassis, I'm the CEO of Sun Resorts. I took over the group about a year and a half ago, or more exactly a year ago, and half a year or 3-4 months was strategic definition, and I had spent 30 years at Starwood before that. So as part of taking Sun Resorts over, which is a portfolio of 6 hotels, came also the ownership of two operators, Soleil in France and World Leisure Holidays in South Africa.
Thank you very much for that. So the first question is, will the market Soleil Vacances are operating in remain the same after the move, or could you consider an expansion for the company?
So when you refer to the move, you refer to offshoring part of their services.
Yes.
I believe that offshoring some of the services will require a more drastic transformation of the operating model that they have today. Up to now, they're a very traditional tour operator that distributes brochures through a huge base of travel agency associations in France mainly. So their territory is France, so they distribute their products through thousands of tour operators. So because they don't have a digital platform today, it is done on a face-to-face manner, which means that it's still very resource intensive. You need people visiting people. For them to offshore certain functions, they need to move from a traditional tour operator platform with a brochure to something dramatically more modern and on a digital platform, so that you can segregate the interaction with your distributors from the back of the house activities that they would need to do. So it requires a complete shift in the way that the organization is structured, and at that stage it would probably allow them to add scope to the regions that they cover, and not only focus on France. Today, the resource that they have focuses on thousands of agencies in France. So for them to do more markets, they would need more people to cover more markets. But with that offshoring theory, they could, in my opinion, with the same number of people, touch a greater number of people and opportunities.
Thank you. Secondly, what does Sun Resorts, as the mother company of Soleil, expect from the business financially?
Well, the tour operator business, if you analyze it globally, has seen a lot of failures and success stories, but more failures than success stories. So I think small tour operators today have a challenge surviving in an environment of a global players. Like an example would be TUI, with vertical integration of the services that they offer. Soleil is a heavy overhead and relies on very limited margins in a very competitive market. So as we talked briefly about before starting the conversation, Soleil has traded in a 1-2% range of profitability when they were not breaking even or being negative. So they are suppliers of business to our hotels. So the big contribution that they do is really the volume of business that they bring to our hotels. Soleil, as such, to be profitable, I believe that the 1% range is, or 2% is probably market average. For us to have Soleil do much more, I think it's very important to see all the room nights that they generate for us, so that's a big important part of their business. But for them to be much more profitable, they need to reduce their overhead cost structure, move into a digital world, and be able to touch a greater number of people. So, I think these operators should go. These type of tour operators, if they transition well into a more modern structure, should probably be able to do something around 4 or 5%. But again, I'm not a tour operator specialist, but I believe that they should certainly be able to do more with less overhead resources, overhead expenses, be more efficient in the way that they perform their duties.
So you would expect an average 5% net profit margin as a standard of acceptance regarding Sun Resorts towards Solaire Vacances performances?
I think 5% is already. I think 5% is already an ambitious task, probably achievable over a period of time. I think we could task them with that, but it will require major transformations to get there. They really need to be able to reduce their costs, to increase their margins, and increase the volumes that they produce. I think. I think it is something that could be targeted over time.
Thank you. So the next question, what would you consider being the major forces for change to offshoring and the forces against change for Solaire Vacances?
I think if we're talking about Mauritius as a potential offshore destination, in favor, I would say, of offshoring into Mauritius is their expertise. Today, Mauritius has become one of the main centers for offshoring of call centers and other financial services. So there is an existence already on the ground of expert companies that could certainly quickly pick up that type of business. So there's no need to really need to set up something specific. There are companies like Accenture and others that are extremely active already here, from a procurement point of view, from a call center point of view, from an accounting point of view. So there's a lot of benefits, sort of a quick setup of it. Obviously, then you have also benefits of local taxation, which is very beneficial for foreign companies. The salary levels are attractive and well below the minimum salaries in Europe. You have a bilingual workforce, or you have workforces even with other skills that you have already in existing call centers that manage more than just two languages. And then against it, maybe you would have the transition, the unwinding of the existing structure, and the setting up of the new one, and how to achieve that in a seamless way. And probably you need to consider the skill set of certain workforces, and again identifying that there are only certain services that would really make sense to offshore. Others would certainly require to stay in their current location due to their interaction with the current market. But you have the cost of maybe training somebody in that specific field. You have a highly or skill force that still needs to be developed, and then obviously you have the impact of the reduction, the redundancy costs, or the structural reorganization that needs to be taken into account between the pros and the cons of going from the current structure to a partially offshored structure.
Would the company's corporate culture be affected by having members of staff dispersed between two different countries and cultures?
Mm-hmm. Personally, I would say that it will affect the corporate culture from being one team in one way of doing things, to separating the functions and the roles. think will certainly change the DNA of the organization without a doubt, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Doesn't mean that it couldn't work, but I believe it will change.
What are the problems that the business has encountered that have led to the recent failure financially of the business?
If we qualify the failure of the business is that Solea has probably broken even or has been in a small or relatively small loss situation. But we shouldn't forget to put next to it all the room nights that they have generated for our hotels, which is the same business. So they have generated business into our hotels that has generated revenues and profitability. So there's a contribution of Solea to the consolidated performance of the group. Now Solea specifically, I think, has been affected by my opinion, by the fact that they have evolved in a very competitive market. France is a very competitive, price-sensitive market, very much influenced by the economic environment of the city, the mood of the people, if they buy long haul, if they buy short haul. And there have been a few major competitors of Solea that have evolved before them into a more modern organization. Should it be digital or offshoring or doing other type of things, I believe Solea has waited a bit too long to take on a modernization of their business model. And some people who have taken those steps before them have gained market share. So not only have they evolved in a more competitive environment, they've also lost some market share to more aggressive players. So it was a bit of a double impact. And Sun has not taken the stand over its history with Solea for the last 15 years to protect the interest of Solea. They have played an open market policy with Solea. So they have not given a certain number of privileges to Solea on certain markets so that they could be more competitive than others. They were very equal with them as they were with others. So others who had different margins could be more competitive and sell packages in a more attractive way than Solea has been in certain cases, thus losing certain. So it's a combination of factors that I believe has impacted them over the last few years.
So to sum it up a little bit, what would you consider the key and important facts for this offshoring possibility for Solea to be a successful business move?
Well, I think like we said maybe in one of the earlier questions, it seems to me that the offshoring, which is something that we've touched base or that you have focused on, is an interesting route, and that there are certain functions that could be offshored, which would have, I would say, I believe, more of a cost impact, cost benefit, rather than a revenue generating opportunity. And I think good business practice would be probably to combine cost reduction opportunities together with revenue generating opportunities. So maybe invite them to or to invite Sun Resorts to think strategically with them as to how they can reduce certain costs, maybe by offshoring certain services, but also by evolving into increasing their ability to drive more revenues. And I think if they manage to do both, they should have a good chance to reach those numbers that you have set.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.